So I had my eyes opened in 2009, and it took me about a decade of being cajoled into the idea that I should be interested in looking more closely about myself and my relationships. And so in 2009, I went to a new warrior training adventure in Wisconsin. And it was, to use an overused term, transformational. And it was transformational for me in the sense that I learned a great deal about myself that I had no clue about. And more importantly, I learned a great deal about the people that I lived with and cared about, my family.
Great.
And so that was wonderful. That was terrific. That was just like a, wow, hello, you know, this is like a new vision. My entry into Path to Spirit was from the same individual who enlightened me to the concept of MKP and the New Warrior Training Adventure. And so the moment this was presented to me, it was like, wow, that's next weekend. I wonder whether I could do that. And I did. And to the extent that the MKP New Warrior Training Adventure was a big deal, the Path to Spirit for me was like the deal. I went off on the most enjoyable path in my life, which continues today. And this is some years now that have gone by where I now am connected to myself, first off, and then connected to others in a way that I never, ever expected I could be. And so I pinch myself periodically and say, wow, I mean, like, what took all these decades to get here? And when I talk to other people about it, and if they're younger than me, I feel a very strong wish and desire for them to get to it sooner. Because there is nothing that has brought me more in connection with myself and with others than this.
Fantastic. Yeah, I similarly took about a decade to do the warrior training, and then as soon as somebody suggested the Path to Spirit, I said, okay, I'm interested, because I didn't want to wait, because I knew I waited too long for the first training. So tell me some of the stuff that you're talking about. So what this new ability to relate to others and know yourself, tell me more about that.
I mean, it's really very simple. What I didn't understand previous to the training was that, in fact, I was lovable. I didn't believe or know that I was lovable. And until that was presented to me in a truly loving, straightforward way with people who really understood how to bring that about, until that was done, I was living in a, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a cloud, but I would say in a much diminished fashion on a day-to-day basis in all of the relationships that I would engage in. And having this explained to me in a loving, straightforward, compact fashion over a period of a weekend was like, wow, this is magical. Except it's not magical. It's really very straightforward. So what I gathered from it and what I continue to carry forward with, which amazes me in ways that I just find delightful, is that I can practice this and I can do this and be a richer, more full person every day.
Wow, that's quite a testimonial, but I have to say I relate completely.
I bet you do. You understand it. This is not bullshit. This is life.
This is the real deal.
It's the real deal.
Authentic for me is that.
Yeah.
So in your relationships with what kind of people has it changed your relationships with?
Well, it started, first of all, with myself, internally, with recognizing the values that I have and therefore could appreciate. And then once I began to recognize and understand and believe that and live it, then it was with everyone else that I interacted with. I mean, it was a little bit scary at first, when I would come into a work circumstance and say to coworkers, I love you. That could be misunderstood by certain people. And I realized, okay, they haven't had the same experience that I have. But it was most apparent in my life with everyone in my family. When I came home from the training and my then 18-year-old son looked at me from across the kitchen and I sat down and he said, "What the hell did they do to you?" And it was because he saw something in me that he hadn't seen previously. And it grew from that.
Right.
And I could use all kinds of words to explain it, but it is just amazing that in a very short period of time, something can be presented to an individual. And I saw this happen with every other person who was in the training. That they can be presented with something which caused them to recognize that their lives could be led in a more fruitful fashion, going right out of it. There wasn't like some run-up period that you had to take or anything else.
Right.
It was like instant knowledge and instant emotion and instant value. And that just doesn't happen. In my life, it never happened before.
I've been to lots of seminars where you get a lot of homework and a lot of stuff, and you get back to the real world, and you just can't fit it into the mumbo jumbo and this ramping up of the work week. But this stuff.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of seminars, and I've been the beneficiary of a lot of training,
right.
Professional training in one fashion or another. Yeah, they're interesting, they're great, they feel terrific at the time. But the true test is, how is this working for me a week, a month, a year, 5 years later? And, I just get sort of tickled with the whole idea that this continues to be the most powerful training I've ever had. And it wasn't like it was some magical, terribly expensive kind of thing to do.
Right.
But it was offered and presented by people who understand how people operate. And in particular, in this case, how men operate.
Right.
And I really, this is kind of odd, perhaps, but I really can't put in words what it's done for me. I can only say that when I look in the eyes of other people who I'm relating to, and I realize that the connection between us is that much richer and better than it ever was before, I get tickled with it.
Right. It's a joyful thing for me. I see the connection goes from the head down into the heart, and I just delighted with that. And it's a kind of relationship that I never had with other men before my Path to Spirit experience. But tell me how you keep that enthusiasm. You just had one weekend, or what else? How do you keep it going for yourself?
Well, in my case, the first taste was delightful, and I wanted more. And I continued to enrich that experience by coming back and involving myself with the training from this other side. Not from the side of the pilgrim who's coming in, who has no knowledge of what this is,
right.
But from the staff. And I found that experience to be as rich or richer than being a pilgrim. And
so is there some kind of hierarchy of pilgrims and staff? How does this work?
No. There's the people who have not had the training, and there are the people who have had the training.
Right.
Okay, so if you can differentiate that. And the staff have a lot more than just simply having been trained. The staff, depending upon who they are, have a great deal more experience in psychology and how to conduct groups and how to conduct this particular type of training. That's the first thing. The second thing that has been absolutely delightful is the continuation of the so-called days of renewal, of which we had one today. And the day of renewal is an opportunity to come together again with people who've had the training and to focus on specific areas that can be difficult with life, be difficult things in life, and to focus on them in such a way that you can enrich and learn from other people who have had this training, other men who've had this training, and share in community with them. The other thing I would say is that one of the things that I did when I stopped working for other people and started working 100% of the time for myself,
Right.
which is called retirement in my mind, that I found that I had time to be able to focus and give back. And the giving back came in the form of my work with the Wisconsin Area Mankind Project as a steward, or the steward for the area. And one of the things we've done is we've expanded, I'm talking about Path to Spirit,
Right.
we've expanded the Path to Spirit in a way to bring mastery work into it. And this is a continuation of the development or mastering of these various activities. And we have a mastery group which meets in Wisconsin every 2 weeks. And it's just delightful because here you have people who understand this process, understand how to relate to one another, and are doing it.
Right, right. Well, how is the male egos? Do you ever bounce up against issues with that? Is there any problems you have? Have you experienced?
Are you saying men can be men? I mean, well, yeah, sure. I mean, everybody's got egos. Some people show them more than others.
Right.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned more than anything else is that accepting other people, understanding other people, learning from other people is, I mean, it's really delightful. As long as you don't get, up against a wall somehow. But the people who have had this training, as far as everyone that I've met, have figured out how that they can integrate and make these things work to their benefit, as opposed to sideways behavior, which ends up with people getting hurt. There's about 4 things in my life that have been really important. One was being born. 2 was meeting someone who I could be in community with in the form of marriage for decades and grow with.
Right.
3 was having children. And 4 was Path to Spirit. I'm enjoying life, and frankly, a huge part of it is because of the training that I've had here. And I can't explain it other than to say there's such friendship in other men working with one another, understanding one another, caring about others, and loving them.
Yeah.
There isn't much more that I can think of that would be better. I'm a believer.
I know, and I know you've taken time and you've got to get going back to Wisconsin, but this day of renewal, it's something that happens regularly in the Path to Spirit?
Yes, the days of renewal are generally a couple of times a year, and it's a recognition of the fact that we are human beings, that we don't have every day be a great day, and that we realize that we still have great opportunities to love one another, be with one another, and learn from one another.
And that's kind of a mastery. There's a mastery thing after the weekend.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. The point is that for men who have had the New Warrior Training Adventure,
Right.
they have been introduced to things that perhaps they never saw or appreciated before about themselves.
Right.
And the thing that I would say about Path to Spirit is that it builds on that in a terribly positive way that brings people to a new level that I don't see a limit to.
I don't
I don't see that there's a limit to spirit. I don't see that there's a limit to love.
It's an unlimited supply.
It's an unlimited
Access.
thing,
Right.
if you will, or I'm not even sure how to put that into words. And because it's unlimited, it's there for you to take advantage of,
Right.
and to give and to share and to receive.
Tap into that source, right?
What do you got to lose?
Nothing. Just
There's nothing to lose except time. The time,
that
you know,
didn't
the
do it.
time, the time you weren't tuned into this
Right.
is lost.
Right.
The time to get into it is as soon as you can.
All right. So tell me how someone in Wisconsin could connect with you and to access this work.
Anyone who's interested in Path to Spirit, really, first off, if they can talk to someone who's done it, that's the most, I think, valuable thing. Because talking to someone who's had the experience, you're either going to believe them or you're not.
Right.
And if you don't believe them, well, then you don't believe them. But if you do believe them, then you have this opportunity to say, okay, well, I'd like what you got, and I want to give what you got. And the other really simple thing to do, get on the website. Look at the Path to Spirit website and look at the smiles in those people's faces. Look at them and tell me if that's not genuine.
Right. It is for me.
It is for me. Yeah.
Great.
It's almost beyond belief, except it's totally believable.